Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Well, President Ramaphosa, let me start by thanking you for hosting us here, the first G20 on African soil, which is a proud moment for South Africa, but one that, in my view, is long overdue. So let's make this summit count. It's striking, listening to the contributions, that across our different corners of the globe, we're all concerned to achieve the same thing for our citizens: good jobs, lower bills, higher growth, better living standards. And that is what my government is focused on. And we want to work with our partners around the table to make that happen. But there's no doubt the road ahead is tough. This is a moment of mounting competition and crises around the world. And that, I think, has been mentioned by pretty well every contribution so far. Fragility in the Middle East, rising threats of authoritarianism and fragmentation, as well as Russia's ongoing unjustified war in Ukraine. The shockwaves of that invasion are still reverberating through global markets today. It has hit growth, driven up food and energy prices, and deepened persistent imbalances and instability across the world. With all that in mind, and echoing what others have said, the role of the G20 is critical at this moment. Growth must be a mission for us all to embrace, as the means to improve lives, to fund public services, and to keep our people secure. The G20 has worked together before to fix fundamental problems in the global economy. We need to find ways to play a constructive role again today in the face of the world challenges. And I'd like to see us come together around a 5-point plan for growth that leaves no one behind. First, we do need to tackle global imbalances, like excessive surpluses and deficits, which can disrupt trade flows, sever supply chains, and choke off growth. For deficit countries, that means acting to stop unsustainable borrowing and prioritise the investment and structural reforms that drive up growth. For surplus countries, it means taking action to reduce subsidies and other trade distortions, as well as measures to boost domestic consumption. Second, we should promote open and balanced trade, taking steps to liberalise trade where we can, with new agreements that lower tariffs and barriers and return to the stability and certainty that business needs. This is a real priority for my government, and I'm proud of the agreements we've reached and the progress that we've made with partners like India and the EU, benefiting our economies and creating new opportunities for our people. Third, in an era of instability, we need to make our economies more resilient. In the UK, this means an unshakable commitment to fiscal discipline. And it means investing in growth in critical areas like clean energy production. We want to work with partners around the world on this to protect us all from future energy shocks. And we want to act together to secure vital supply chains, including for critical minerals. Fourth, we need to reform the international rules-based system so that it is fit for the modern world. We need to work together to ensure organisations like the WTO are more able to be agile with new rules to meet modern challenges like environmental and digital trade, and better and more flexible decision-making processes so that those who want to make progress can get on and do it. Finally, we do need to work together to tackle the unique challenges facing emerging economies, especially in Africa, whether it's the growing debt burden or the financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. This G20 is the moment to respond to these structural challenges and to deliver more stable and resilient finance. We're working on that through the London Coalition on Sustainable Debt. We need to go further under the G20 common framework to make debt restructuring better, faster, and easier. And we need to crowd in more private capital. We're working with the industry to break down regulatory barriers in the United Kingdom, and we want to see multilateral development banks take more risk and partner more with the private sector in new, innovative ways to mobilise finance. AJ and I have been discussing this in some detail, and I think we agree there's huge potential for this to go further. For the good of all our people, it is time to make it happen. So let me thank you once again, President Ramaphosa, for your presidency of this G20. I wish the US the best of luck next year in 2026, and I look forward to taking forward the agenda during our presidency in 2027. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Starmer. I now have the opportunity to call upon the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, His Excellency, Mr. Gibrian Rakabamung Raka, to take the floor.
Your Excellency, President Ramaphosa, Excellencies, leaders of G20 countries, let me begin by conveying warm greetings from President Prabowo to President Ramaphosa. Also deep appreciation to the government of South Africa for the warm hospitality and excellent arrangement. We commend South Africa's leadership in steering the G20 through a challenging year. This is a historic G20 summit, the first being held on African soil. This milestone marks a profound shift where the Global South is no longer a bystander, but a co-driver of Global South. Excellencies, Indonesia believes that global growth must not only be strong, but also fair and inclusive to uplift each and every nation. Indonesia welcomes the G20's focus on sustainable finance, yet ambition must go further to close gaps and to pursue adaptation, mitigation, and transition that is just and fair. The world needs financing that is more accessible, predictable, and equal, especially for developing nations, through debt relief, innovative financing, blended finance, and green transition mechanism. Indonesia allocates more than half of our national climate budget, around $2.5 billion annually, to support green MSMEs, agricultural insurance, and climate-resilient infrastructure. Indonesia also promotes financial inclusion. Our national CRIS digital payment system demonstrates how a simple and a low-cost digital solution can push participation in the economy and minimize inequality. Emerging technologies such as crypto asset, digital tokens, including Bitcoin, may create both opportunities and risks. Therefore, Indonesia proposes that the G20 initiate dialogue on intelligence economy. Indonesia believes that every country is entitled to chart its own development path because there is no single model that fits all. There is no such thing called the best method. Cooperation must empower, not dictate. Cooperation must uplift, not create dependency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. I now would like to call upon the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade and Worship of Argentina, Ms. Pablo Quirno Magrain. Oh, Mr. Thank you. Is it switching on? No? Looks like somebody wants to silence you.
There we go. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. I would like to express our gratitude to the Government of South Africa and President Ramaphosa for the generous hospitality extended to us by your country during this year. Your presidency has invited us to reflect through the lenses of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Allow me to outline our perspective on these pillars. We believe that the principles of solidarity, equality, and sustainability can only be achieved within an international system grounded in freedom, clear rules, and responsible economic governance. Economic growth remains the foundation for job creation, investment, and resilience in our economies. Such growth depends on policies that promote stability, innovation, and private sector development within a predictable framework grounded in the rule of law and a market-based economy, as highlighted in the G20's foundational declarations. Argentina has learned firsthand that long-term growth is only possible when supported by sound public finances. Fiscal imbalances contribute to inflationary pressures, limit investment, and erode economic confidence. Addressing these imbalances through responsible fiscal management and expenditure control is critical. In this context, solidarity can only be effective when growth rests on a stable macroeconomic environment, a legal order that protects private property, and clear rules that expand opportunities for private sector development and all individuals in our society. Associated with this is equality of opportunity, which is both achievable and desirable when grounded in the principle of equality under the law. Achieving this requires structural reforms that foster solid institutional and regulatory frameworks, laying the groundwork for markets to function efficiently, attract investments, encourage job creation, and boost productivity. Equally important is creating opportunities through education, which serves as a powerful equalizing tool and equips individuals with the skills needed to fully benefit from these economic reforms. Technology is a strong ally in this effort. We must maximize the opportunities it provides while mitigating its risks. This includes fostering digital transformation and ensuring that job creation aligns with the needs of the future economy based on the upskilling and reskilling of labor. It is therefore necessary to design policies that facilitate investment by establishing conditions for the development of a market policy, vocational training, and education for work that facilitates growth, the creation of wealth, and quality jobs, accompanied by labor flexibility policies. Development policies must be directed toward creating an environment that encourages private investment by reducing risks and taxes, protecting individual property rights, ensuring predictability, and enabling all people to pursue the success of their ventures based on merit, effort, vision, and innovation. When the foundations of growth are respected, solidarity and equality of opportunity become achievable and sustainable over time. Distinguished Chair, esteemed leaders, finally, I wish to draw to your attention to the draft document circulated yesterday. As we all recognize, this G20 represents an important opportunity to demonstrate our collective commitment to the development of the African continent and its people. Argentina has sought to contribute meaningfully and constructively to the consensus-building process. We have shared the red lines we identified in this context, aiming to support the G20's broader goals. Those red lines remain until this time. We all know that the G20 is a premier global forum for coordinating economic actions. Its core principle is consensus, which reflects a reality that all of us must work together to accomplish our shared objectives, ensuring financial stability, fostering economic growth, and strengthening collective development. For Argentina, it is crucial to preserve the integrity of this process by acknowledging when consensus has not been achieved, rather than proceeding with a document that does not accurately reflect our collective will. Moreover, we're deeply concerned with how certain geopolitical issues are framed in the document. Specifically, it addresses the long-standing Middle East conflict in a manner that fails to capture its full complexity. By focusing on a single dimension of a specific territory, it overlooks the broader regional context, the international recognition of different entities, and the structural causes of the dispute. In this regard, I wish to recall the recent adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 2803 on November 17th, which emphasizes the international community's support for a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, while calling for a comprehensive, fair process to address all aspects of the conflict. In closing, Argentina, although cannot endorse the declaration based on the aforementioned discrepancies, remains fully committed to the spirit of cooperation that has defined the G20 since its inception. We're convinced that only through genuine dialogue, respect for consensus, and adherence to the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law can this forum continue to keep working constructively with all members and partners, with a shared aim on strengthening global stability, promoting sustained growth, and advancing development in a manner that is inclusive, balanced, and respectful of our diversity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. We note with deep respect the views expressed by Argentina. We will recall that in our last G20 Summit in Brazil, Argentina was given the opportunity, following the various discussions that led to the consensus and agreement on the declaration. It was given the opportunity to voice its misgivings about certain parts of the declaration as it was adopted. And similarly, we have given Argentina the same opportunity, that they should, in their presentation, be able to raise issues that they are concerned about. We should take courage in knowing that that does not, in the end, mean that the declaration is nullified or rejected. It is a declaration that has been adopted by all of us here present. And so we want to thank Argentina for expressing the views that they have expressed, and many of the views are really views that are common or commonly held by many in terms of the adherence to rule of law and supporting the resolutions of the United Nations. So we thank you, Minister, for putting Argentina's position forward, and we will, with great respect, move ahead with a declared, with the accepted declaration as the G20. Thank you very much. We then move on and ask His Excellency Mr. Edgar Amador Zamora, Minister of Finance and Public Credit of the United Mexican States. Please go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Distinguished leaders of the G20 and invited countries, heads of international organizations. On behalf of the President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, I wish to extend our sincere congratulations to President Cyril Ramaphosa and to the South Africa team for an outstanding leadership of the G20 this year, and for convening the historic Leaders Summit, the first ever held in African soil. Mexico is a country deeply involved in the promotion of peace as a basis for justice, fair trade, social equity, gender equality, cooperation for development, and respect for human rights. Economic welfare and cooperation for development are shared responsibility among nations. In a world defined by interdependence, no country can isolate itself or prosper at the expense of others. Choosing cooperation is, in essence, choosing a common future grounded in justice. The expansion of trade can drive employment, raise incomes, and reduce poverty, all core dimensions of sustainable development. Moreover, international trade fosters the global adoption of green technologies, serving as a powerful mechanism to accelerate the transition toward low-carbon, resource-efficient economies. However, the expansion of global trade also brings complexities. While it has fueled global economic growth, its benefits remain unevenly distributed. It promotes the exchange of knowledge and culture, yet disparities persist in labor protection and social inclusion, particularly for women and underserved communities. Environmentally, trade can advance green standards and technologies, but it also contributes to emissions, overexploitation of resources, and biodiversity loss. The question, therefore, is how to ensure that global trade benefits are shared equitably and if directly contributes to sustainable development and shared prosperity. The multilateral trading system recognizes that when trade is fair, transparent, and properly regulated, is a key driver of development and a tool for lifting millions out of poverty. Trade must serve people, generating well-paid jobs, fair wages, and opportunities that foster social inclusion. In the economic sphere, Mexico promotes a strategy of shared prosperity that places workers at the center of decision-making processes, recognizing that decent work is the foundation of a better quality of life. In this sustainability dimension, our priority is to prevent, reduce, and reverse environmental degradation while fostering a circular economy. Our national energy policy advances renewable sources and accelerates the transition toward cleaner production and consumption patterns, while ensuring equitable access to water as a fundamental human right. Through the Plan Mexico, we are empowering MSMEs by integrating them into national and global value chains, facilitating access to credit, digital tools, and capacity building program is essential for equitable growth and innovation. At the same time, we are investing in human capital, aligning education and training systems with the skills needed for the green and digital transitions. Environmental sustainability lies at the heart of Mexico's industrial and trade policy. We promote investment that meets standards on water reuse, clean energy, and solid waste management, with encouraging community-centered business practices. Environmental responsibility and resource efficiency are not obstacles to competitiveness. They are its foundation. Moreover, ensuring debt sustainability, particularly in less developed countries and vulnerable economies in Africa and Latin America, will strengthen those nations and create a more resilient and sustainable international financial system, where the benefits of trade and cooperation can reach all populations. Mexico has supported instruments for debt treatment such as the Common Framework and the G20 Ministerial Declaration of Debt Sustainability. We have also developed a sustainable debt management strategy by using debt instruments under favorable conditions, including local currency and fixed interest rate bonds. Through sound public budget management, Mexico has increased investment in social protection and education above 6% and 4% in real annual terms, respectively. Thus, we advocate for international debt frameworks that enables this development-oriented approach, preserving fiscal space for health, education, and sustainable infrastructure. The G20 must lead by example in implementing the Sevilla commitment, strengthening the common framework, and expanding it to include middle-income and climate-vulnerable countries is both a moral and economic necessity. The G20, the United Nations, and international financial institutions must act in coherence. Mexico calls for an advancement of its synergies between the Sevilla Action Platform, the Pact for the Future, and G20 financial track. Finally, Mexico believes that the strength of the G20 lies not only in its economic power, but in its collective moral responsibility. Let us lead with courage and conviction to make trade fair, debt sustainable, and development truly inclusive. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you indeed, Minister. I now have the privilege to call on the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, to take the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس سيريل رامافوزا، الحضور الكرام، يسعدني أن أشارك في قمة هذا العام في مدينة جوهانسبرغ تحت شعار التضامن والمساواة والاستدامة. ويسرني أن أستهل كلمتي بنقل تحيات خادم الحرمين الشريفين وسمو العهد حفظهم الله وتمنياتهما الصادقة بنجاح مساعي رئاسة جنوب أفريقيا التي تستضيف أعمال مجموعة العشرين ولأول مرة في القارة الأفريقية، ومساعي الدول الأعضاء بتعزيز التعاون الاقتصادي وتحقيق التنمية المستدامة على الصعيد العالمي. الحضور الكرام، تؤكد المملكة العربية السعودية دعمها الكامل للجهود الرامية إلى إصلاح منظمة التجارة العالمية وتعزيز نظام تجاري متعدد الأطراف عادل وشفاف يمكن كافة الدول من الانخراط بفاعلية في الاقتصاد العالمي ويحقق العدالة بين الدول الأعضاء. وترى المملكة أن التجارة الدولية ليست مجرد أداة للنمو الاقتصادي، بل هي ركيزة أساسية لتحقيق التنمية الشاملة ووسيلة لتعزيز الاستقرار الاقتصادي العالمي وضمان استفادة الجميع من منافع النظام التجاري الدولي بشكل متوازن. وفي هذا السياق وانسجاما مع مستهدفات رؤية السعودية 2030 تستمر المملكة بتطوير الأطر التنفيذية التي تشجع الاستثمار المسؤول في مختلف القطاعات بما في ذلك السياحة والتكنولوجيا والبنية التحتية المستدامة وتعزيز التصنيع المستدام من خلال تسخير الموارد المحلية وتعزيز فعاليتها وجذب الاستثمارات النوعية المتوافقة مع الأهداف التنمية المستدامة. كما تؤكد المملكة على أهمية موائمة جهود مجموعة العشرين مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة للعام 2030 لضمان تحقيق نمو اقتصادي شامل ومتوازن يعزز رفاه الشعوب ويحافظ على الموارد للأجيال القادمة. وترى المملكة أن التحديات العالمية بما في ذلك أعباء الديون على بعض الدول وأمن الغذاء والطاقة والتغيير المناخي والتحول الرقمي تتطلب تنسيقا مستمر واتباع نهج متكامل يوازن بين التنمية الاقتصادية وحماية البيئة والاستقرار المالي. وفي هذا الإطار تشدد المملكة على ضرورة الحد من التدفقات المالية الغير مشروعة وتعزيز قدرة الدول على تسخير مواردها المحلية بكفاءة باعتبارها من العوامل الأساسية لتحقيق الاستقرار الاقتصادي وتمويل برامج التنمية المستدامة. كما تدعو إلى تعزيز التعاون الدولي لتبادل الخبرات وأفضل الممارسات في هذا المجال بما يسهم في بناء أنظمة مالية أكثر شفافية ومرونة. الحضور الكرام، لقد أثبتت السنوات الأخيرة أن التحديات التي تواجه عالمنا لا تعترف بالحدود وأن معالجتها تتطلب تضامنا دوليا صادقا وتعاونا متعدد الأطراف يقوم على المسؤولية المشتركة. فالعالم اليوم يواجه مستويات متزايدة من عدم المساواة واضطرابات اقتصادية عالمية تركت آثارها العميقة على حياة الملايين وأدت إلى التصاعد في حدة التوترات الإقليمية والدولية. هذه جميعها قضايا تهدد استقرار النظام الدولي برمته وتعرقل مسيرة التنمية المستدامة. وبالرغم من تلك التحديات وحالة عدم اليقين التي يشهدها الاقتصاد العالمي، فإن المملكة ماضية في العمل على بناء اقتصاد عالمي أكثر تكاملاً واستدامة من خلال شراكاتها الفاعلة على المستوى الدولي بما يضمن مستقبلاً مزدهراً وآمناً للأجيال القادمة. في الختام، تؤكد المملكة على أهمية دور دول مجموعة العشرين المشترك في قيادة الجهود الدولية لتعزيز التنسيق بين السياسات الاقتصادية العالمية والنمو المتوازن وتمكين الاستثمارات المستدامة وتطوير سياسات صناعية واقتصادية تدعم الاستقرار والازدهار للجميع وتساهم في حماية الدول الأكثر هشاشة من تداعيات الأزمات المالية والاقتصادية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness. I now call upon, in the segment of members of the G20, the last speaker before we go to guest countries. I now call us upon the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential Executive Office of the Russian Federation, Mr. Maxim Oreshkin.
Thank you, President Ramaphosa. The international economic order is definitely in crisis, and it is no longer matching new and emerging realities. This crisis is three-dimensional. the crisis of globalization and openness, the crisis of global economic institutions, and the crisis of economic development models. These days, global economy is facing a severe fragmentation. Advanced economies continue to engage in illegitimate unilateral actions, including sanctions, trade barriers, technological and educational restrictions, as well as seizure of sovereign assets. These methods of unfair competition destabilize the global economic architecture, disrupt supply chains, discourage long-term investments, hold back the global growth, and undermine progress in achieving the sustainable development goals. Today, we are here in Africa, a region that urgently needs strong economic growth to meet the needs of its fast-growing population. We should talk today about access of Africa and the Global South to new technologies, healthcare, education, and most importantly, financing. We're concerned that financial flows to developing countries are simply not enough. Even the official development assistance came to a steep decline in 2024 of 7.1% and is projected to fall further. While Africa is in dire need of capital inflow, total net borrowings by G7 governments, according to the IMF data, will reach almost $3 trillion this year. By the way, it equals to total GDP of the whole African continent. Mounting sovereign debt of several G7 countries pushes them to the verge of fiscal collapse. Artificially inflated financial bubbles may trigger a knockdown to the global economy. If we look at the international financial institutions, they are currently deviating from development finance to military expenditures. Thus, financing goes back to the Western economies, and in many cases through the corruption schemes in Ukraine. The World Bank, for example, has provided Ukraine with more aid in 3 years than to all African countries combined. Moreover, African economies face biased rejections and complicated procedures of funding from the World Bank and the IMF. Definitely, all these institutions should be reformed to benefit the Global South. Dear colleagues, global economy and its growth structure has already changed. BRICS and countries of the Global South now form the dominant driver of global growth. We have the talent, the resources, the technology, and the capacity to drive growth and improve the lives of our people. Unlike in previous decades, the Global South economies are ready this time to move forward with their own platform for economic growth, based on their own solutions. In technology and education, in trade and connectivity, in finance and investments. The rise of this emerging platform of growth becomes more evident with each passing year. The fact that growth in the 21st century will come mainly from the Global South is indisputable. We call the G20 to get back to the fundamentals of sustainable development. It means poverty reduction, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. This should be based on sound economic development, which includes fighting protectionist and illegitimate unilateral measures, including sanctions, tariffs, technological and educational restrictions. To fulfill this mandate, the G20 should stay a multilateral platform for coordinated action acting in solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Russia is ready to play an important role in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency. That concludes for us the segment of the members of the G20 speeches. We now move on to section B, which is guest countries who will, as we have to conserve time, be limited to 3 minutes each. And I do hope that we are able to keep to that to the extent that we can. I now call upon His Excellency, Dr. Abiy Ahmed Ali, the Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia.
Your Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, distinguished delegates, let me begin by extending my appreciation to President Cyril Ramaphosa for his extraordinary leadership. I also would like to acknowledge Johannesburg a city of opportunity and progress. Excellencies, it is with humility and hope that I address you on African soil at this historic G20 summit. Humility because Ethiopia's journey is still unfolding. Hope because our story, like that of many nations here, shows that transformation is possible even in difficult circumstances. Ethiopia is a land of ancient civilization, defined by resilience and prospects still being written. Our homeland has sheltered faiths. Our people have built lasting societies. From this legacy comes Maddamar, a philosophy of unity in diversity, of synergetic collaboration that multiplies potential and of progress shared by all. Guided by this spirit, Ethiopia is moving toward inclusive growth. Our cities are becoming hubs of innovation. Industrial parks reshape economies. Farmers use tools their parents could never imagine. Young entrepreneurs and building businesses that were impossible to dream of a generation ago. For too long, countries like ours have been labeled fragile or poor. Yet our story is a quiet revolution of bold actions rewriting what is possible. Because growth is the achievement of people who refuse to be left behind. In Ethiopia, we have learned that inclusivity is not charity, it is efficiency. When every farmer, entrepreneur, and innovator shares in progress, the economy becomes self-sustaining. Our journey has been tested by drought, conflict, and global shocks. Yet from those tests emerges transformative renewal. We are investing in renewable energy that powers both homes and hope, digital infrastructures that connect citizens, and green agriculture turning smallholder farmers into climate champions. Excellencies, we're not here to speak of despair. We're here to speak of possibility and of shared responsibility. In that spirit, let me highlight 3 priorities. First, debt. Ethiopia has engaged actively with the G20 common framework to unlock resources. Debt relief must translate into investments that empower people and secure the future, including educated children, modern hospitals, and resilient infrastructure. Second, climate. Through our Green Legacy Initiative, Ethiopians have planted over 48 billion seedlings, restoring soils, watersheds, and hope ecological restoration must become the new global investment landscapes, supported by debt for climate swaps and green value chains that reward nature and communities. Third, energy and digital transformation. The Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam symbolizes Africa's renewable ambition. We are expanding into solar, wind, geothermal, and nuclear power, and we envision an Africa energy network that drives industrialization while achieving net zero emissions. Through Digital Ethiopia, we have liberalized telecom, expanded broadband, and advanced digital finance. By 2030, we aim to complete our national digital public infrastructure, integrating IDs, payments, and data platforms to serve citizens. For Ethiopia, artificial intelligence is a tool for inclusion, helping predict droughts, diagnose diseases, and support local language, ensuring technology works for all. Excellencies, Ethiopia's journey mirrors that of many emerging economies. Our success offers lessons, our challenges offer insights. Inclusivity and sustainable growth is both a practical and a moral imperative for our continent. It requires humility to reconsider what we treasure and courage to redefine what we value. I propose that the G20 adopt a new lens, measures resilience as growth. Let us count not only GDP, but the capacity of societies to withstand and adapt, because That ultimately is what sustains development. Ethiopia stands ready, rooted in Madamar, to contribute to this shared global journey. I thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Ahmed Ali. I now have the privilege to call upon His Excellency, Mr. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Basogo, the President of the Republic of Equatorial Guinea and the President of the Economic Community of Central African States, to address us. Okay, there seems to be a problem there, which they will fix in a little while. I will come back to President Basogo. I now want to move on to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Finland, Alexander Stubb.
Thank you very much, Cyril, and thank you for the invitation. You know that Finns are famous for two things. One, they speak very shortly, and two, they love rules. And I hope I will stick to both. It's a great privilege to be here for the first time representing Finland. We've never been at a G20 meeting before, and we really appreciate the invitation. Jonas Störe and I both come from Nordic countries, and we once calculated that the Nordics would be G10. So perhaps I'll speak in that spirit. Cyril, for me, this meeting is very much a symbol of multilateralism. And what you are trying to do here is to bring a group of key countries together that have both demography and economy on their side. And you are doing it at a time when there clearly is a change in the world order, where I believe personally that the nexus of power is moving eastbound and southbound. And now I think all of us pretty much have a choice, and the choice is between multilateralism, which you are representing, and multipolarity. And these two things are very different. For me, multilateralism is about cooperation, it's about rules, it's about norms, and it's about institutions. I like these rules because they are the ones that bring exactly the thing that you have up there on the board: solidarity, equality, and sustainability. My big worry right now is that the world is moving more in a multipolar direction. And multipolarity, though it gives power to nation states as such, is problematic because it's more transactional. It's more about deals, and therefore it's more prone to conflict. There have been many excellent interventions here today about rules on trade, rules on the way in which we engage with each other. My biggest worry right now is that we are not seeing enough multilateralism in three key conflicts that have been raging around the world. One, Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. Two, the situation in Gaza. and 3, the situation in Sudan. So I hope that we lean towards multilateralism. And let me say, coming from a small country, what I believe the West should do in this. I think the West should understand that the multilateral institutions that were created after World War II and that were upheld after the Cold War, the power structure of them is right now unfair. It needs to be changed. We need to distribute power in a world that exists today, not the world that existed in 1945. That is the best way for us to drive multilateralism and get it back on track. Thank you very much. 3 minutes and 12 seconds.
Thank you very much, President Stubb. You were just so precise, Alexandra. That's the Nordic spirit, I take it. We now go back to His Excellency President Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, President of the Equatorial Guinea. We apologize for your mic having not worked as it should have, but please go ahead.
Sus Excelencias, Jefe de Estado y de Gobierno y Jefe de Delegaciones, distinguidos invitados, señoras y señores. Me dirijo a ustedes en nombre de la Comunidad Económica de los Estados de África Central.
There is still a problem for President Basogo. My apologies again, President. The technicians told me that they had fixed it, but it seems like they still need to do a little bit more work. And with that in mind, I will move on, and we will give you double the time. I will move on to His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Ireland, Mr. Michael Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, President Ramaphosa, and congratulations to you and to South Africa on your G20 presidency, the first on African soil. And your drive and commitment to using this important forum to tackle very important issues is deeply appreciated, and Ireland has been very honoured and privileged to have been in the position to work with you across all work streams over the past 12 months. Our world is ever more interconnected and interdependent, and working collaboratively is the best way we can serve our people. Our long-standing commitment to international law, multilateralism, and active engagement in international fora motivates us to advocate for an inclusive international system that leaves no one behind. And in that context, there is an urgent need to end war and conflict. War and conflict damages and undermines economy and economic growth. And in that context, there must be renewed efforts to end the illegal invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the war that has ensued, and also the horrors of Gaza and the appalling situation in Sudan. We must work very hard to end these wars in addition to the many other conflicts. Ireland advocates for economic growth to be inclusive, to be resilient, and to be environmentally sustainable. And our focus has always been on investment in human capital in terms of education and training as the key underpinning of economic growth into the future. Economic growth has to contribute to equality, to poverty reduction, and must align with international commitments on climate change and environmental protection. Ireland welcomes the G20 efforts that support inclusive growth on the African continent and beyond, seeing this as an endorsement of the Agenda 2030 commitment to reach the furthest behind first. Women's economic empowerment is crucially important as a direct pathway towards gender equality, poverty eradication, and inclusive economic growth. Ireland values policy interventions that support investment in local and regional value chains, which support quality jobs creation, raise living standards, and enhance resilience. Digital inclusion is a key enabler of a growing economy, and we're supportive of work to develop a fair and inclusive digital economy with effective rules for digital trade. Trade and investment need to create opportunities for those considered the furthest behind, particularly women and marginalised groups. And Ireland, along with the European Union, is committed to an open and rules-based multilateral trading system with a modernised WTO at its core. The rules and the standards that the WTO provides are crucial for all of us who depend on global trade and allow all trading nations to benefit. The stability and the predictability provided by the rules-based multilateral trading system is key in supporting sustainable development. It does have to, however, be modernised and must also address the impact of the increasing use of trade-distorting industrial policies. Growing debt servicing costs, as has been said, translates into reduction in many countries' expenditure on the core areas of health and education and social protection, again impacting their ability to reach the furthest behind first. Ireland supports the outcome of the Financing for Development Conference, the Seville Commitment, and we are supportive of the institutions and initiatives that assist countries with debt issues. And these include the G20, which has developed and is overseeing the implementation of the Common Framework for Debt Treatments, the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable, and the Paris Club. And we continue to call, where appropriate, for reform and improvements of these institutions and initiatives. These priorities have guided our active engagement in the G20 this year, and we support South Africa in this endeavour. Thank you very much indeed, President.
Thank you. Thank you, Taoiseach. I now would like to go back to His Excellency, President Ngwema Basoko. He will have been given a roving mic so that he can make his input. The fixed microphone does not seem to be working as well as it should. Go ahead, Your Excellency.
Sus Excelencias, Jefe de Estado y de Gobierno y Jefe de Delegaciones, distinguidos invitados, señoras y señores. Me dirijo a ustedes en nombre de la Comunidad Económica de los Estados de África Central. Permítanme expresar mi agradecimiento a la República de Sudáfrica por su liderazgo y por el tema elegido para su presidencia del G20, a saber, solidaridad, igualdad y sostenibilidad. Esta cumbre de Johannesburgo tiene lugar en un momento en que la arquitectura de la economía mundial aumenta las desigualdades en lugar de reducirlas entre las naciones. Durante décadas, nuestros pueblos han soportado los costos de un sistema desproporcionalmente a unos pocos y castiga a los más vulnerables. Sin embargo, nuestra región de África Central también ofrece soluciones globales. A modo de ejemplo, la cuenca de Congo constituye la segunda mayor masa forestal tropical del planeta y uno de los últimos grandes sumideros de carbono. El Golfo de Guinea garantiza la seguridad de rutas marítimas vitales. Nuestros suelos y minerales críticos desempeñan un papel clave en la transición energética y nuestra juventud representa un motor de innovación, siempre y cuando logremos liberar todo su potencial. Nos reunimos hoy en el G20, un foro que pretende ser el espacio donde las economías más influyentes del planeta dialogan sobre el futuro global. Sin embargo, permítanme recordar que ese futuro no puede constituirse ignorando las voces del sur global, ni repitiendo las fórmulas que han perpetuado las desigualdades entre las naciones. Para que el crecimiento económico sea inclusivo y sostenible y que no deje nadie atrás en nuestra comunidad, quisiera ofrecer a esta cumbre unas soluciones que pueden ayudar para los más necesitados. Primero, hacer que la arquitectura financiera mundial sea más justo. Esto significa facilitar el acceso al capital para las economías en desarrollo, establecer un marco de solución de la deuda, reformar los bancos multilaterales del desarrollo y promover la justicia fiscal. La CAC apoya la propuesta de Sudáfrica de crear una comisión sobre el costo del capital del G20, con el fin de diagnosticar y corregir las deficiencias estructurales en la evaluación y fijación de riesgo soberano. Segundo, transformar los minerales críticos en prosperidad compartida mediante la creación de valor en origen. Esto implica claramente desarrollar cadenas de valor locales, establecer normas que generen oportunidades, dividendos comunitarios y que garanticen la integridad ambiental, así como el vínculo entre lo humanitario, el desarrollo y la paz. La transición energética no debe reproducir los antiguos modelos extractivos. Tercero, garantizar la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional mediante inversiones desde la producción hasta la distribución. La CAC necesita socios para apoyar la agricultura climáticamente inteligente, el sistema de riesgo y la producción regional de fertilizantes para reducir la dependencia de las importaciones y la volatilidad de los precios, invertir en el almacenamiento de cadenas de frío y servicios de asesoría digital dirigidos a los pequeños productores, sobre todo las mujeres y los jóvenes. Asimismo, abogamos por la creación de una reserva alimentaria general y de un sistema de alerta temprana. Solicitamos el apoyo financiero del G20 para promover una seguridad alimentaria basada en la cadena de valor para ser autosuficientes. Cuarto, reconocer y recompensar los bienes públicos mundiales, en particular la cuenca del Congo, cuyas selvas absorben miles de millones de toneladas de carbono y protegen los regímenes de lluvias más allá de nuestra región. En efecto, proponemos la creación de una ventana de financiamiento específica basada en los resultados complementarios al Fondo de Pérdidas y Daños. Invitamos al G20 a contribuir en la creación de mecanismos automáticos de desembolso rápido para la reconstrucción post-desastre. Quinto y último, poner al ser humano en el centro de la transición digital y de la inteligencia artificial. Esto debería impulsarnos a la inversión en infraestructuras digitales, públicas y en la innovación inclusiva. Proponemos, por tanto, establecer un mecanismo de G20 para ampliar el acceso a la conectividad y a los conjuntos de datos abiertos para la inteligencia artificial de interés público, priorizando las lenguas y los contextos del sur global. Sobre todo, estos 5 imperativos se encuentran en una agenda transversal para medir y combatir la desigualdad entre la base de hechos y no de mitos. La CAC respalda la creación de un panel internacional sobre las desigualdades, a fin de seguir las tendencias, evaluar las causas y medir el impacto de las políticas. El mundo reclama una gobernanza más justa y es nuestra responsabilidad ofrecer una respuesta que conduzca a un futuro más próspero para todos los pueblos del planeta. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, President Basago. I now would like to call upon the Prime Minister of Jamaica and the Chair of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, to take the floor.
President Ramaphosa, thank you for the kind invitation to participate in this important meeting. Please accept our commendations on South Africa's presidency. Excellencies, Jamaica supports the global agenda to make economic growth not only strong and sustainable, but also inclusive and resilient. Jamaica's story is one of social partnership and sacrifice. We transformed our economy after decades of instability through disciplined macro-fiscal reforms anchored in responsible debt management, institutional strengthening, and targeted pro-growth initiatives. We reduced our debt, lowered poverty and unemployment, contained inflation, stabilized foreign exchange, and built robust reserves. Now, our focus is on translating the dividends of sacrifice into investments in our people. Getting the policy mix right is both an economic and moral imperative. Yet, one external shock can undo years of progress. Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 storm, has devastated 7 parishes. Its impact will negatively affect our debt trajectory, and the road ahead will be challenging. This is our reality today, but it is also the recurring story of vulnerability told by small island developing states in CARICOM and indeed across the world. Global partnership will be essential to our recovery. The G20 commitment in 2021 to recycle SDR allocations led to the creation of the IMF Resilience and Sustainability Trust. This facility provides developing countries with relatively low-cost financing and longer maturities. We urge the G20 to preserve and strengthen this mechanism. We also call for innovative, flexible financing solutions, such as thematic bonds for climate adaptation and blended finance structures to support resilient infrastructure designed to meet the unique needs of climate-vulnerable economies. Jamaica further calls on the G20 to advance a rules-based, equitable, global trading framework that enhances predictability, flexibility, and resilience for small economies. This should include expanding access to targeted financing and risk insurance instruments tailored to the needs of SIDS, supporting technological upgrading and productive capacity enhancement, integrating multidimensional vulnerability indices into eligibility and financing terms across IFIs and climate funds, so countries can invest in resilience without compromising fiscal stability. Establishing a loss and damage financing window with clear rules-based triggers for timely and predictable support. Advancing a global skills and trade compact for SIDS to strengthen human capital, competitiveness, and inclusive growth. Excellencies, through these actions, the G20 can ensure that global trade and financial systems become more than engines of growth. They can become forces for shared prosperity, resilience, and sustainability, leaving no nation behind.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and we should collectively pass our condolences to you and the people of the Caribbean for the devastation that we all witnessed as you faced a huge calamity. We thank you for your steadfastness, and we thank you, and please pass on our greetings to the people of the Caribbean. We now call upon His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, the Chair of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, Mr. Anwar bin Ibrahim.
I thank President Cyril Ramaphosa for his leadership and for South Africa for inviting Malaysia and as ASEAN chair to this summit. We meet in a country and continent that has endured the most dehumanizing aspect of apartheid and colonization. The expectations from countries in the South is for G20 to pursue an agenda that is just and fair, to be unequivocal on our resolve to end the atrocities and colonization in Gaza, and the civil strife in the Sudan, and achieve an amicable resolution to the war in Ukraine. Malaysia has worked with our Asian neighbors in particular to manage political conflicts, tariff shocks, supply chain pressures, and rapid technological change. We have found that when policies are aligned and rules are predictable, shocks pass through with less damage. The lesson is clear. Resilience comes from common preparedness, not isolation. This lesson matters because the next disruption will likely to be harder to burden. Artificial intelligence will recognize labor markets at a pace our institutions will struggle to match. Without early investment in transitions, workers, especially the young and women, will face these shifts alone. We have seen the consequences before when societies were unprepared for globalization. Poor governance, grinding poverty, endemic corruption, resulting in stagnant wages, eroding trust, and the rise of politics that feed on grievance. With AI, destabilization becomes a real risk if countries enter this transition unprepared. This will be one of the defining challenges of our times. Now, countries, of course, must equip their people, especially the young, for the speed of technological change. Opportunities for trading and credible safety nets are essential. Small and medium-sized firms, which carry much of the employment burden, will need support. Global resilience cannot be built on fiscal exhaustion. Many developing economies now spend more on servicing debt than on education and investment. Countries need the capacity to invest ahead of disruption, not after. Multilateral development banks must be ready to deploy more quickly and work closely with countries to support the investments and build resilience. We are ready to work with all partners to meet this common challenge and to help sustain an open, predictable global economy that gives our people a fair chance to thrive. Thank you again.
Thank you, Prime Minister. It now gives me pleasure to ask His Excellency Dr. Pedro Sanchez Perez Castijon, the President of the Government of Spain, to take the floor.
Thank you for giving me the floor, President Ramaphosa, my dear friend, and allow me to congratulate you for the adoption of the declaration. We meet at a moment of deep uncertainty for the global economy, for sustainable development, and for multilateralism. Earlier this week, a Spanish think tank reported that more than 22 million people could die all over the world by 2030 due to cuts in official development assistance. Those figures are truly horrifying and only one example of the tragic, real-world consequences of the trends we are witnessing. Yet, as we have also seen this year, when we choose cooperation over fragmentation, progress is possible. The 4th International Conference on Financing for Development held in Spain was a powerful reminder of that. There, countries endorsed the Compromiso de Sevilla and launched the Seville Platform for Action with more than 100 concrete initiatives to implement our joint commitments. Not just words and wishes, but tangible actions that will make a real difference on the ground. Among them, there are 3 initiatives led by Spain that respond to one of the great challenges of our time: debt sustainability. They are the Global Hub for Debt Swaps, the Debt Post-Close Alliance, and the Sevilla Forum on Debt. These are 3 very pragmatic tools born out of real-world constraints that can really help rebuild trust in international cooperation and solve the burden of debt in developing countries. But financing alone is not enough. Trade disruptions, fragmentation of supply chains, and rising protectionism are eroding the foundation of global growth, and they need to be urgently tackled. Let me be clear, tariffs are not a weapon, they are a barrier. Yes, industrial overcapacity and unfair competitions are real challenges, both for advanced and developing countries, but responding to them with tariffs leads only to collective defeat. This is why it is more urgent than ever to strengthen the multilateral trading system, restore the central role of the World Trade Organization, and update it for the world we live in. Inequality must also be at the center of our agenda. The Stiglitz report, commissioned under South Africa's G20 presidency, has delivered a stark warning. We face an inequality emergency just as severe and systemic as the climate emergency. Extreme concentration of wealth undermines growth, corrodes democratic institutions, and fuels polarization. Addressing this requires fair international taxation. The progress the G20 has achieved on global tax reform cannot be allowed to unravel. We need tax rules fit for the 21st century. Colleagues, allow me to finish with a reminder. Inclusive and sustainable development is impossible without peace. We must stand by the principles of the UN Charter, everyone, everywhere, at all times, be it in Ukraine or in Palestine. This means defending sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity, and ensuring strict compliance with international humanitarian law. Without peace, without respect for multilateral rules, our efforts on trade, development, and inequality won't succeed. Spain remains committed to working with all of you to ensure that the G20 strengthens cooperation, protects the most vulnerable, and leaves no one behind. And I thank you.
Thank you, my good friend, President Sanchez. I now call upon Her Excellency Dr. Nedumbu Nandi-Ndaitwah, the President of the Republic of Namibia.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. Namibia thank and congratulate Your Excellency President Ramaphosa, the government and the people of South Africa for bringing G20 to Africa, placing Africa's concern in the agenda of the summit, and for the kind invitation extended to my country. Guided by the African Union Agenda 2063 and the UN Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, the importance of addressing development priority from the African perspective cannot be